Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the episode. We'll get them
COVID
hooked early.
19 pandemic.
Get them, yeah, and then when they're hooked, then we'll reel them in with great banter
I
and
think it's
content
yeah, I
and
think
our
it's
good
gonna be good.
looks. Yeah, yeah, me too. I think it's going to be even better than good. Probably, I'd say great.
Fair. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Between Two Coaches. We're on a mission to make fitness more human. Snark sold separately. I'm Coach Amanda, and I'm joined as always by my co-host.
Coach Nick, thank you so much for joining, everyone. We have a great episode today, straight out of the brain of our my co-host Amanda. We're talking about how the fitness world and running world has changed since the COVID and pandemic. Amanda, do you know I'm seeing all our news? It's been 5 years since the pandemic since started, and this is like the news is everywhere. 5 years.
I know, and I
Crazy.
wanted to talk about it today because as I was going through articles from major publications, New York Times, I recognized how much has changed in my professional life, my personal life, which all relates to our fitness and mental health. Well, it's health in all respects. So, fitness and running
Yeah.
and financial health and mental health and how we see the world and how we engage with our communities. I feel like this is the time to talk about the last 5 years and what has changed for us as fitness professionals, as run coaches, but as a society.
Yeah. I mean, we are best friends basically because of the pandemic. So that happened. I remember early on having a conversation with one of my athletes, and we were just talking, and I remember just saying like so much, like it just felt so weird. She was a teacher, and like she was teaching remote, and it was like really hard, and I was just like so much of like what is happening now, like everything's not going to stay, but like there are bits and pieces of like this new world that's going to stay with us forever and just become normal. And like it's interesting to see what those pieces were, even just down to our our topic here today in the running and fitness world. So much, so different than 5 years ago. Like you wouldn't even, sometimes you can't even imagine like the, you'd be like, before COVID we used to do this, and they'd be like, what? No, that's not how running works anymore.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
wild.
Well, before, oh my gosh, I feel like this is one of those topics we just started talking about because we have so much to say about it. But before we do that, why don't you tell me a little bit about your weekend?
Oh, I will. I will. It's exciting. I will tell you all about it. I did a fun week. I did a long run this weekend, and it went mildly okay. I wrote in my stories, but I'll share here is that I was supposed to do it on Saturday. I missed it, and so I moved it to Sunday, which is fine. I don't care. And Saturday we did a lot of stuff as a family. We went on this adventure across Maryland to pick up a mask because Chloe's doing softball, and we went to dinner, but we didn't make
Wait, a
reservations because you
mask?
can and you
She's
couldn't
picking
get
up a
in.
what?
Like a softball mask. Sorry. Yeah, yeah, I should have clarified. She's playing softball, and they need to get a
I'm
fielding
like,
mask.
why are we
So
masking
Kelly did her Facebook
the child? Is
Marketplace.
she at
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Halloween on the field?
No, no. Yeah, good clarification point. But anyway, we couldn't get into dinner because like the place was full, and the next place was full. So like I went a long period without really eating and or fueling my body pre long run. And so I was like, all right, I'll just stuff down dinner, but I wasn't really
Mm.
hungry 4 hours later. And so I woke up. I think I had a bowl of rice at like 9 p.m. at night. I'm like, this will solve everything. And then I woke up and I started my long run even later than I should have because I run procrastinated. I went out, and within 10 minutes, I was like, oh, wow, I'm starving. And so I started taking a gel. And then 30 minutes in, I was like, I'm still starving. So I took another gel, and 45 minutes, another gel. I took 130 grams of carbs in the first hour, which is not normal for me. And I was
Right.
still starving afterwards. And I just came to the conclusion about 90 minutes in, as I was playing this game of catch up and failing, that like no matter how much I took in, I was not keeping up with how much my body needed before the run and was burning during the run. And so around 90 minutes, I just said, nope. And it was like 13 and a half miles. And I just cut it. And I said, no. I said, I can't, like, I am running this thing into the ground and it's going to end poorly. And I shut it down. I wanted to do about 18. I ended up going back later and doing another 2.5 after eating, like later in the day. And like, it's not the same, but it's fine. Like, it's not the continuous long run I wanted, but I wanted to do a couple more. And so I got in a long run. But like, the moral of the story is like, even us, coaches or people who've been doing this for a while, like I lost track of my Saturday
Make
and
up
I
for it.
could not
Yeah.
recover my long run no matter what I was doing. And like, sure, could I have toughed out 3 more miles? Maybe. Like, it wasn't dying, but like would have had a big impact to knock out another 40 minutes to get to 18, 45 minutes without like with being so deprived. I probably would have ended up probably getting some random injury the next few days that doesn't come like, just pops up out of nowhere. Tried to be smart, excited about being smart. When we age, we are
True.
smarter sometimes. But yeah, that was my long run. That was fun. Big week up ahead.
Cool.
I'm doing a race. We're doing the me and my friend Jackie are doing the
Nice.
Shamrock Half. If you follow me on Instagram, she's the one, and we wore ghost outfits
Iconic.
for Halloween last October. And this year we're wearing a Lucky Charms chicken legs outfit with these
Can
little
we
Lucky
press
Charms
pause?
shorts and a
Have you
nice little Lucky
worn the
Charms shirt.
Lucky Charms outfit on any runs? Okay,
Oh no, nope.
so
We will we
you're
will we
about to
will
make
be
your
ready
second
for
mistake
adventures.
of the week.
Yeah, but I have Body Glide, and I'll just lather up, and the it'll just slide right off, so it'll be fine. It will not cause issues, most likely. But excited if you're doing Shamrock too, and you see me, just shout a hi. But it's a great race. I don't know if you've ever done it. It's very flat. There's not a hill in sight. You just deal with wind because you're basically running on the ocean, and it's always great.
Okay. All right. We're looking forward to hearing more about this next week.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited to share more about it. And last thing I wanted to talk about because I've gotten so many DMs of people just wanting me to know. I shared with you, Amanda, too. I posted a what I thought was a very funny reel about a couple doing something. They said, "Oh, when we crossed the finish line together," and I turned it to running. Everyone wanted to make sure that I knew that it was a sexually
Nope, not the one.
innuendo. How you say it?
I
Innuendo.
don't need to correct you.
Innuendo.
You know, it's not. It's not necessary.
I know. And so, thanks for the people for educating me. I still would, after I found out, I still shared because everything
Okay.
can be about
So
running.
for every,
That's the
did
moral
you
of that
give
story.
context because I kind of blacked out as you were speaking?
No, I didn't give any context. I figured you'd fill the people in.
All right. So I
You're the
have to
host.
admit something as you're being honest with our audience. I have to admit something too. If you are listening to this and you send me a reel, like you tag me in something or you post something on your stories, and there's a very, very high probability that I will not watch it or I'll keep skipping, and I'll like it. I'll do a double tap because I want you to feel seen and heard. I did not watch this story, and I'm certain, like, I'm a viewer of your Instagram story. I did not watch the reel
Yeah.
until you brought it to my attention. I'm only watching your Instagram stories, Nick, and this is a compliment to you. So this is how I make everything better. If you are speaking into the camera or you write something, because I genuinely appreciate your thoughts, and that's when I'm listening. I'm not like when you posted that, it didn't even, I just kept scrolling. I was like, what is he doing with this? So I had to relook at it. Okay. Well, coming back to present moment, I looked and it's a video of they're
They're
a
a very funny
funny
couple, by the
couple
way. They
on
very,
Instagram,
yeah.
and they were talking about when they both cross the finish line, how they feel. And the finish line
Yeah.
isn't a literal
Not
finish
running.
line for those who are listening. It's a sex joke. So
Yeah. I learned that in the comments and then from all my DMs. So the more you know. How was your week, Amanda?
it's It's going. The week is going. Could always,
Week, week.
I'm in a season of life. So as the season goes, it ebbs and flows. That's life.
Yeah, that's how life works.
Uh, we're fine. Everyone is.
We'll be rooting for that flow for you. Is it the ebb we're rooting for or the flow? I don't actually know.
I don't know. I just want to
Yeah.
get the fuck out.
Yeah.
However, I am very happy to be talking about. We're going to talk about our topic now. I think this is a.
We are going to talk about our
I
topic
think this
now.
is
We
a
did
good
it.
time to do that. And so we gave you a little teaser. Okay. Sorry. We are talking today about how the world, our personal worlds, the fitness world, all the worlds have changed since the COVID-19 pandemic. I already shared with y'all what inspired this conversation. And I think that a good place to start would be how it changed both of our professions and maybe a little personal in there, and how we've seen it transpire on in the community and social media, et cetera, et cetera. Does that sound right?
It does sound right. You know, our community loves when you get personal.
And by
So
our
they're
community,
waiting.
he means him. He does, because
And our
I don't.
fans, they love it
I'm
too.
sorry, fans. You're gonna get what you get, and you don't get upset. Okay. Okay, so 5 years ago, I was personally, professionally teaching. Was it 6 days a week or was it 7? At that point, I had just dropped my 7th day. So you're like, wait, there are only 7 days in a week. Yes, that would be right.
Yeah.
So I was not in a place financially to have a day off from work in order to continue affording rent and life. So I had been working 7 days. I had just dropped Monday. Mondays were my first day off, but I had been working, probably teaching, I think 25 classes a week. It's a lot. I was a new runner, like within the last years. I dabbled in running a little bit, but no routine around running. And I had it was March. And I remember when I was here in the city and I was basically told to stay home from work because I had worked full time at that point for Equinox in group fitness. I had my personal training certification. I didn't have any clients except my best friend who I was training, but that was really it. And I just remember being told that we were going to stay inside for 2 weeks or be out of work for 2 weeks. And that would be it. And I lived by myself at the time in my little shoebox apartment here in the Upper West Side. So 2 weeks turned into quite some time. Was unemployed, furloughed. I'm trying to remember the phrases that we used during that time to describe what it was like to not be employed, but to be supported by the state or the federal government. And while that was happening, my previous boss, because I used to work in government, he actually was, I'm saying kind enough because it was how I was making money. He was kind enough to rehire me. So I started to work again for the New York State Assembly while teaching Instagram live classes. I also started an online platform. This kind of propelled me into the online space. And I started a platform where I had an on-demand membership for folks to engage with fitness from around, not just people who knew me, but from around the country. I had some international subscribers as well. And that's really what started my virtual business. I also was certified in run coaching at the time. I would later be interviewed by Elizabeth. We know her from Running Explained. And it put me in husband and I moved in together. Boyfriend became fiance, then became husband. We moved during the pandemic, just within the same building for me. I just moved up a few flights of stairs, as one does in New York City.
She's
That's
an
right.
uptown girl.
Yes.
Moving up.
And And the pandemic changed my life for the better, professionally
Oh,
and
yeah.
personally. And there were a lot of things that came from that moment in time that it's a reason why I have such a better relationship with work and life and the balance between the two and setting boundaries. So I have the pandemic to thank for a lot of things. So I'll start with that. And then I think we'll talk about a little later some of the things that we've observed that are good and not so good in
Yeah.
our spaces. But I think that's it for now. What about you? Yeah.
We like that. Yeah, lots of changes in my life. I was right when the pandemic hit, I was training to run the New York City
Mm.
half. We probably would have met then and become best
Was training
friends. We just
for a
didn't.
half. I was training for it was Shape Women's Half in April. I ended up doing it. That was my first half marathon, and I ran it solo. So
Hey.
you were
Yeah.
coming into the city for the United Half
Yeah, I was. I actually was at my mom's in Jersey that
that
weekend because
weekend.
it literally shut down that week, the world, and I was like, "Oh, am I gonna run? Is this race gonna happen? Is it not?" It was like Friday, I think. I feel like no one knew, and then they're like, "No race." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm here." Yeah, so I was getting back from an Achilles injury. I still had big aspirations, big running goals. And so I around the time I also started coaching right before then. And so I was in the office a lot, so I only thought I'd have a few athletes to fit in with everything. And so then the pandemic hit and then my work got told, "Hey, go home and we're going to work from home." But we weren't ready for that. So it was like a lot of like pivoting real fast for everyone to be like, "What do we do? How are we going to do communications?" We were very much a set an organization in the office. I think a lot of organizations were probably like that. So we figured it out. We had this tool, we hopped on it and we did calls. So work from home became new for me. That was tough because I never thought I could be a work from home kind of guy. I was like, I'd have too many distractions. I wouldn't do my work. I wouldn't pay attention. I would, do anything but work. But I made it work actually. I did a really good job. My setup was like a mess in the beginning. It was like I was on like a little tray, like a dinner tray. I had my computer on. I was sitting there with a little chair, like a little hard chair, and I was like, after a few months, I was like, we're staying home
Right.
for a bit. I should probably upgrade. So I did. But yeah, so I grew my coaching a lot over the pandemic. Went from like a few athletes to many tens
Tens
of
of tens,
tens,
yes.
tens dozens, tens of tens. And so really thankful for the opportunity to kind of explore this world of running and just like seeing what could happen. I remember I was at the Olympic trials in 2020 in Atlanta and we were all there and we're like, "Oh, this COVID thing's happening. I wonder what's going to happen." But we're all like here. And this was like February 29th. So it was like 10 days before, 12 days before the shutdown. And everyone was just like hanging out in houses and no big deal. And then we all came home. We're like, "Oh, maybe it was a big deal." So like it was just a shock, right? And so grew my coaching business a lot. My own work continued a lot from home for a while till we went back full time recently. Luckily, my kids were both in daycare, so they didn't
Okay.
do school from home ever. We never had to try and like, "Hey, I'm working from home and I'm also have my kids on Zoom," and like figure out that parent life that I know a lot of people struggle with. Luckily, my oldest hit kindergarten right when schools were like, "We're back." And now my youngest is in kindergarten. Things are more normal. So, lucked out with that type of life. I think a lot of the changes were letting me kind of explore a lot in running. I mean, from going from Lift from Perform where I coach to running explain to starting this podcast to, the friends I've met along the way to the athletes, all that stuff is like very lucky, not lucky, but just like something I got to embrace because so much changed. Like virtual coaching really became
Hmm.
it took off because we'll talk about like running took off a lot over the pandemic. And on a side note, my running itself
Hmm.
tanked a lot. I am a very my entire career has been social runner dude guy. And so when I was in a team in high school and college, and then when I started again in my 30s, I was on a team. And then when they were like, "You should run by yourself," I just didn't have the motivation. My mileage went down a bit and just I wasn't as good doing it solo. Over the years I found friends because a lot of people have moved away over the last few years. But yeah, a lot of my running was better when I had a group to meet every Saturday or Sunday and weekdays and stuff like that. So my running itself has been a little less than where it was before it started, but that's okay. I've embraced the new side of life and running. So yeah, that's sort of my story. All for the better for the most part.
Yeah, it sounds it. It's as you were speaking, I had a memory because as if you listen to this podcast, you regularly hear ambulances coming going by my apartment. That's a very common, especially in the Upper West Side or uptown, just because all the hospitals are, or a lot of the hospitals are uptown, a lot of the medical facilities. So during the pandemic, I think one of the most challenging things as a New Yorker was how there was an ambulance going by every minute, and it made you shake, um, because you just didn't know the state of New York and people's health. And Central Park actually was a place where they were hosting sick people. Like they were, and so that was really
Yeah.
scary. And so I, every time I hear an ambulance, I think about that time. And that's just something that like, I know is, it's weird that it's become background noise for me. So anyway, I was just having that little memory as you were speaking, Nick. So, when it comes to the things that we've both seen in the last 5 years or beginning in 5 years ago, I think it was the beginning, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, of engaging in running and fitness and just life in general, maybe experiences, doing it for the gram, quote unquote. It was the start of people capturing their lives as highlight reel, really following somebody's life so closely through a screen.
Yeah. I mean, TikTok exploded it, right? Like I used Instagram well before
Me too.
um the pandemic, but like you just put all you would do is you do a run, you'd stand in front of your house, you'd set up your camera, you'd make a pose with your hands up with like a peace sign, and then you'd post, great run today, ran 7 miles, saw a bird, jumped over a car, got awesome. Have a great day, everybody. And then you get like 60 people writing comments and, or whatever, how many people, like people would write comments, oh, I hope you had a great run or have a great day, you too, blah, blah. And that would be it. Everyone would just post one picture, you would scroll your feed and you just see your friends, and that was it. And that was the time
Well, I
of
wasn't
like,
a runner during,
just that was with
I
social media.
have had an Instagram for a very long time, but I wasn't a runner before I wasn't a runner who posted on Instagram until after
Yeah.
the pandemic. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, you didn't have videos. Like no one would dare post a video. Like, it would be like, I'm not
It's
watching
weird.
that.
Weirdo.
It's like 5 seconds long. Like, where's your photo? That's it. Give me that. And then like, yeah, so that was like the time. And then but like, yeah, like we all sat at home, and then TikTok, the Talk app exploded, and everyone was on there being themselves or being weird or
Yes.
sharing. It felt like as much as you possibly could, because every ounce you shared, like, you
Right.
connect with more people, and like people were starting to like let you in on every part of your life, and we're like, that's too far, please stop, we don't need that, go back a step. But like that was like how TikTok exploded, was like, okay, no one has job. I mean, most people are home working, maybe lost their job, here's this thing. And I think the company didn't know what they were doing at first, but then they're like,
Everyone's
oh wow,
making
everyone's using this thing.
sourdough on
and
this thing.
and like, and like TV was on its way out, we didn't know how to market. Oh, why don't we jump on and we're gonna just like start paying people to talk about our products. And like, so TikTok slowly started morphing, because I remember in the beginning there'd be so many people be like, oh yeah, if you get a following then you can get sponsors for products, and like that was like the way, right? And so doing it for the gram, like, or the talk, but like it quickly became like you went on a run, and like over the years your phone was out the whole time and everyone was just videoing everything. And like, you maybe didn't even know you were with someone because you had too many videos of like you guys just together, right? Every run would end with like, oh, group photo everyone, or group video. So a lot of it became like, for it's exploded in the last few years, but even in the first years it was a lot more of like, well, I need
Right.
something for the gram, or I need something for TikTok, so I'm going to go do this thing. Now it's like, well, my
It's
entire
recorded.
day is, a video. That's like the last few years that
I
has
think that
exploded
I
more.
have to share. It's not a. I don't know if it's a grievance, but it gives me a little ick because I'm just like, how and why do people care so much? There are when I see influencers who post like the day in the life and they're time stamping every 12 minutes, 5:05 a.m. The camera's in their ma'am, you're not. No one is waking up like that. Stop it. Stop it. And they're typing
I just
out
got
like
out of bed like this.
every few minutes, like putting on the bra, brushing their teeth, you know, taking it.
Taking a dump. 5:10 to
But
5:37.
that is a perfect example of a post-pandemic world where people are intrigued by this content, and I cannot swipe further away from you when I see this. I want you to stop. I want you to stop.
There are people who do a good job with day of lives, though. Like, there are people sometimes I'll watch a day in the life, and if
Oh,
it's like enjoyable
and
or
it's
like,
some of
yeah,
my
yeah. But
most like
like the
I think I've done day in a life 2 times, and I've made it like really me.
I
But
can't.
there's something that I do on my Instagram stories every once in a while that people engage with a ton, and I'm like, this is weird to me, but because they're engaging with it, so I'll put like today's agenda. I'm not the only one who does this, but like things that are coming up for me because people are genuinely curious, like what I do day to day, and I know that they are
Yeah.
because my own parents have had a hard time explaining to their friends and colleagues, oh, what does your daughter do? Amanda
She posts a
is
lot on social
she's,
media.
so anyway, that is something that people appreciate that really I know came from the pandemic. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, we want to know your life. But yeah, I on top of that, like I think it goes along with it, but like this decreased ability to create
Yes.
community outside of screens, right? Like that's also, right? Like so I know run clubs have kind of taken off over the years. I mean, I used to go to run clubs all the time pre-pandemic. That was like what I would do. Like Saturday would be a run club or Friday would be a run club, a tavern run or whatever. Like that was my vibe, but they weren't necessarily
Mm.
super popular. And now every influencer has their own run club. It's just what you got. If you're a running influencer or a fitness influencer, you have your own run club, right? Because everyone's gonna come and they're gonna
Sounds horrible.
something. But so yeah, but like outside of that, like it is a lot of the community is
Yes.
what you have online, right? Like, you are just you're people say it all the time, like, make sure you turn your community into like email or like something else because TikTok goes away, you lose your entire community or things like that. And
It's
so like
wild.
people think we have this like large community, but like if someone were to destroy an app or an outage or something, you'd lose everything. You would lose your entire community, right? In most cases. And
So
so
I
we've lost this
agree. I agree. I'm
ability.
going to interrupt you because I think that I think
Ooh,
there's, and the
I like the
ambulance is going to
interrupt.
interrupt you too. I think that that's an issue. And I know that's what you're saying too. Like it's an issue. I think when I think about my in-person community, if Instagram shut down, I'd be like, well, how are we supposed to advertise and share like different things, our podcast, or share good moments, or see other people who we've connected with online? But my in-person community, in my like at least in my lived experience, is very rich, which is all I think is a gift. But the fact that as a society we've become so reliant on the internet to stay in touch with people, and specifically social media,
Yeah.
is troubling. Yeah, so that was my random thought that I just wanted to share.
No, and I like it. But we're making a comeback. Voice notes are back. That's like phone calls. Like we've decided not to call each other anymore, but we will send a 20-minute voice note. Just you can't talk back. I get to rant for 20 minutes and send it to you. And that's our
No, I'm
voice
shaking
note.
my
Are you
head
not a
because
voice note girly?
I was one of the first, okay?
Oh.
I was No, I
Oh,
did
she
not invent
invented
it, but
it.
I was the one on like before they allowed you to put voice notes like in the messages. I was saving memos
Yeah.
and
Oh
sending
my
it.
gosh.
Yes.
Sending those?
I was on it.
Ooh.
People,
You are the
the ones
OG
who are
of
listening
voice
to this,
notes.
who have known me for a long time, they're like, yep, that's true. Amanda's been do not disturbing my phone calls and been doing voice memos for a minute. It's my truth, okay? And I think you're right. I guess it is.
Yeah.
I guess it is us trying to hear people and
It's funny because like we don't want to, like, you don't want to call someone. Like my friend called me the other day, and I think she's only called me 3 times ever, and I was like, oh, she must be dying or an emergency or like something terrible. And she's like, oh no, I wanted to tell you this quick thought, and then I didn't have a hand. And I was like, well, then you wait till you have a hand. What are you doing? Like, don't call me. But anyway, I digress to say, like, yeah, like voice notes feel like this funny way of like, all right, well, I'm not going to call someone because I don't want you to talk back. So here's my 20-minute rant. You're going to listen to it.
yeah,
Have a
some
great
people
day.
take it really seriously. Like my sister, who is not going to listen to this podcast so I can talk smack, she will send me 12-minute. Like I'm talking ridiculous. I'm hearing her talking to my niece. I'm hearing her cursing the person out in the pharmacy. I'm like, why is it? How did I get here? And how can I make it stop? So the one thing that I would like Apple to do is what they've done on Instagram is the speed. No, the
Is that a
speed.
summary? Oh no, does it, maybe Apple Intelligence? I don't know if you have one.
No, it does. I get a
summarize the
transcript.
voice
I get a
note for you.
transcript. But then
Oh,
I
good.
have to list. I have to read it.
Well, not transcript. Well, I wonder if it could even summarize it, like even just like tell you the bolt, like the AI points of the voice note. She is complaining about the weather. That's like the whole summary of the thing.
So what I do is I just
Oh, that's
respond
the
via
field I
text
want.
and I say, I'm not listening to this.
TLDR.
Yeah.
One of our future podcast guests coming next month sent me once 35 minutes of various voice notes.
Yeah, but
that I sat down and like listened to like it was my own podcast.
No, that's a good series. When I listen to one of our secret guests, that's a good series.
Yeah, but yeah, so
yes,
let's move it along to increased mental health concerns.
Yes.
Without in-person support.
I brought this up as an issue because
you want to hop on this? Yeah.
This was so during the pandemic, as everyone who's listening to this probably remembers, not only were gyms the only places that were open, okay, which were problematic, by the way. So if you were an essential worker, your job was likely open, and that included our police forces, fire departments, government workers, but for the most part, they didn't have to be in the office physically. Grocery stores. In New York City, you had to wait on a line outside of the grocery store just to get in because they only allowed a certain amount of people in. It was chaos. Where else was maybe pharmacies, I'm guessing, hospitals, doctors' offices, and liquor stores.
Yeah, you got
which was, as somebody who it is very intimately aware of substance alcoholism abuse, that for me was like, wow. The fact that our society has deemed this necessary to keep open it's telling me everything I need to know about what people are going through right now. And as somebody myself, if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you know that I'm very active in also the eating disorder space as somebody who has benefited from eating disorder 12-step programs. And when those meetings shut down, it also happened to be a huge resurgence in eating disorders and other mental health issues during the pandemic because people were isolated, right? Mental health disorders, specifically those around addiction, thrive in isolation. It was heartbreaking what we were seeing in our communities. Zoom meetings. I mean, first, it took a second to figure out, like, we need a way to connect with our communities where we're not in person because all these spaces that people were meeting were closed, right? So there was a transition there, similar to what you were speaking about with government offices. The Zoom meetings were really not sufficient. And arguably, they're still not. Like, does it give people a way to virtually connect with others who are also in need? Yes, and that's a positive. However, it still doesn't provide the in real life community that folks with mental health disorders so desperately need. And I've seen that continue 5 years later.
Yeah.
What, in your experience, have you seen on the mental health side?
Yeah, my wife's a therapist, and so like she just saw an influx of people over the years and just dealing with lots of things, lots of things coming back up that they had or couldn't deal with or struggling with being at home. So many couples like going through stuff now that they're, you're in your house, you're in each other's face all day trying to work. Maybe their kids are there. Like just a lot of stuff. Like, it's hard to get that away time you had when if you were both going to the office or something and your kids are at school. Like it is good to have some independent time versus like, okay, we're having, and like then so many people like started businesses together too, like at home. So like, a lot, she saw a lot of stuff with couples. She's a marriage and family therapist, is her specialty. So a lot with that world. I noticed myself personally, interestingly enough, I always thought I was a giant extrovert. And I think I am. And I think I always get people always get the stuff wrong. Like, but like, around the right people, like, yeah, I'm having the best time and I'm very extroverted. But like in a giant group of people I don't know, like that's like terrifying. But like what I was gonna say is like I found being a home a lot wasn't really weighing, like I was just enjoying it. Like I would just relax and like pop some shows on or play some video games, and like I wasn't missing as much like, oh no, I need to go out every night. Like I went out a lot, just to hang out with friends. Like we would do social happy hours or we would do other things, and like all that went away and I was like, okay, like I'm just home and this is fine. Like I work, go home, I gotta get out for my run. So I was getting that time outside. But for me, like it didn't, there wasn't like I wasn't like, I think I've gone out a lot less since because maybe I just, it didn't need it. I found new ways to connect to people. Um, But yeah, for me, that was an interesting thing I learned about myself was like that I can just kind of be okay relaxing at home and not having a big to do. When most of my life I always needed to plan everything. And I was like, all right, it's Friday. What are we doing? Saturday. What are we doing? Sunday. What are we doing? Now I'm like, can we not do anything all weekend? And my kids are like, absolutely not. I'm like, all right, I tried. Anyway, so yeah, I saw a lot with, with athletes, just a lot of stuff they were going through. Like it wasn't even about running half the time over the pandemic. It was about work or life or stress or just the things around them, right? And just how much that was affecting their running when, everyone would be like, oh, I have all this free time so I can crush athletics, crush fitness. Sure, except for like the mental toll you were carrying with you that you weren't addressing because,
Whole thing.
you were just, masking it all with fitness and running every day. And so a lot of people dealt with that over time. And it was a lot of like conversations as a coach of best to like support, you know,
Right.
how much is too much with what's going on and what you're reflecting on. And but yeah, that was a lot of what I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah, you reminded me as you were speaking of like I had to have a real talk with several folks who were either taking class with me or started training with me because that's really when my personal training business blew up. And they were talking to me about somebody was talking to me about their step count. I'm like, is this really healthy or harmful that you feel that like you have to walk around your house for an additional 30 minutes to hit a fake made up number? Like that's
Yeah. Fitness
fitness.
though.
And some of those things, as we both know, are still present today.
Yep. But yeah, next topic was one of the things I wrote down was increased opportunities for work. We touched on this a lot already, but just like interesting how much has come about. Did before it was like everyone, anyone you knew, they had a job, right? It was a 9 to 5, maybe not always a 9 to 5, but something that was like in the morning you went there and you went somewhere and you worked all day and you came home. It was like normal, like 99. A lot of people, I don't know the percentage, had that type of lifestyle. Now, I bet it's closer to like 50-50, maybe even less than that, of like people who do a 9 to 5 in an office versus people who have found a way to create something themselves, right? And I think the coolest things from social media or things I've seen over the years is just people being able to be creative, right? That like you watch some people make interesting videos early on in the pandemic before all the tools were made, right? To like create like this well animated clip or something, right? and you're just like, wow, these people are
Yeah.
so talented. Like they would have this type of talent wouldn't it, they would have been in a school, and the school would have been like, whatever, like what are we gonna do with that? Go learn history or go learn math or go learn, something that's gonna get you a job. And like then they're home and they're like creating this wonderful stuff and they're getting noticed by bigger companies, probably production companies, probably they ended up working for maybe movie studios, like things like all these opportunities. These people who didn't like probably have that chance really got that chance. And it wasn't just that, but like people became coaches, people became involved in running, people became involved in fitness and created a job. Like people who probably would have again been at an office, maybe not being able to use their knowledge, their skills, their ability to connect. So like I just think it's cool that like this did open a lot of doors. And I know sometimes there's resentment towards people who have, oh, you're an influencer, like it's not a real job. I mean, whatever, right? Like you've created something out of your joy and passion, and
Yes.
you've made a job. And that's cool, right? That's the American way, right? It's like to be able to create something yourself and not have to conform to the rest. And I thought one of the biggest things that I've loved about this is just being able to create something with your own, creativity, ingenuity that like would have never existed in the
So true. It
old.
gave a lot of people, myself included, the permission to tap into a part of themselves that they may have not flexed before. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Next up, do you want to talk about how gym culture has changed because we're recording
I
everything?
think this is we spoke about this before. We're kind of talking about the same thing in the running community, but as somebody who exists in a gym setting almost, well, now 4 days a week because I have a 4 day teaching schedule.
Yay.
Everything, people are coming in with tripods. People are
Film
literally, it's
crews.
like they cannot get off the phone. So it bleeds into a few areas. I didn't notice folks' phone addictions as much as a teacher prior to the pandemic. Now there's a formal announcement that's made in the beginning of my classes, and I have to shame you if you decide to go against that and purposely not listen to me when I'm on the mic. And I have to ask you to get out of the class if that's more important to you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like, and they're not, and I notice that people are not on the phone, not because they have a work emergency or like their kid's sick. Because if it's anything like that, somebody will say to me, I may have to look at my phone because XYZ. That is a human issue that I can support. We need to
Yeah,
take care, you need to take care of what you need to take care of.
exactly. Kim Kardashian posted something and I need to see it right now. That's my XYZ, right? Like that's the kind of
So
stuff that
that's the kind of
matters.
stuff you're going to get thrown out of my class for, right? And but then the other side of it are folks just wanting to capture every moment, and it's not necessary.
Yeah, what always bothers me the most, I don't know, some of them are fake now, but like early on it was like tripods everywhere. Like I went to the gym for a little bit at some point during the pandemic and like there were just cameras everywhere, tripods set up everywhere, set up wherever people were lifting or whatnot. And then all the videos would leak online and people would be like yelling at someone for air quotes staring and like, I caught you staring. Look at this video. There's eyes looked over here. And I'm like, I don't want to be at the gym because like this is miserable. And like the last thing I want to do is be in some video where someone's like, look, this guy staring, and I'm just like looking at the ground or something. Or that stuff drove me up a wall. And I was like, I'm just gonna get some
Right.
weights and stay at home because like I can't be stepping over everyone's camera, like walking around. The gyms don't care. Like they really should just have a no phone policy, but like then the fitness world would cease to exist. So, just make a gym only for phones. Everyone who has phones can go to the one gym in every area. You can all do your phone stuff, and the rest of us can go lift. Because I same thing when I go to the gym. Like I don't need to video tell my do myself doing a squat. Like no one wants to see
No,
that.
and
I don't even want to
they're
see that. I just want
oh,
swole.
okay. The other issue
Is
that
that the thing? Oh,
it's like no one has boundaries now with the phone or the screens. And so at my place of employment, folks are taking selfies in the locker room, even though there are signs
no.
not to. Folks are bringing their device into the steam room and the sauna.
Nope. 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 Oh,
I'm
no.
like, you can't get off this thing for 1 minute.
Phone explode. Isn't it too hot for a phone in there anyway?
They're gonna have to fuck around and find out. I
They would
know.
overheat. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that.
Anyway, yeah, gyms, we're recording everything. I mean, they always were because they had cameras in there, but like not us. They were just making sure no one did bad things. We sort of talked about this a lot, but like, I guess I wrote doing more online. And so, I really talked about this world of coaching and physical therapy and fitness and groceries and telehealth. Like this was not stuff that really was coaching online existed before, but like very few people I knew had coaches that they
Hmm.
never met or was in a different state. And now it's like everyone's like, oh, my coach lives in Australia. And
Right.
it's like normal, right? Like no one would even be like, why? I like them and I vibe with them and I met them on Instagram. So like that's normal. PTs, like, doing physical therapy online, like, you opened up the ability to like have other people see you if you've met someone before but you don't live in their area, or you have a friend, they're like, oh, I love my PT in New York City. Well, I can't see him, I live in New Jersey, I'm not gonna drive in there. Well, then like this world of like, oh, well, I can just help. You can't get contact like that you might need in some ways, right? But like you can still be seen by people you want, and they can offer knowledge. Like telehealth, same thing. Like you can see, I know there's insurance rules, but outside of like insurance,
Right.
anyone can see anyone, and you can have a therapist that lives in Arizona and they could be supporting you in, New Jersey. Groceries, that's the big thing for me. I've stopped
See,
going to
I'm
the grocery
not like
store. I
you.
I hop on the app and I just type in what I want. I don't know how to find it in the grocery store, and it gets delivered to my house, and
Okay,
I
but what
felt very
happens
good. Like
if you
that's the
need
one thing
something?
I've
Let's say you want.
well, then I go to the
Wait,
grocery
wait.
store.
What
Yeah,
if
yeah.
they
I
get
go to the
a
grocery store for
bat? Like
those.
you put in a request. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you want to hear something personal, that is very, very uncommon. Your girl has never, ever had DoorDash or Seamless or Instacart,
Ooh,
and it's not because I'm better than anyone. It's because I grew up in a house
sounds like me.
where if you ordered food, you were going to get it. So there's just no way that that was going to be who I was.
But you're like you've been a city girl, right? So like you can't have groceries
Everyone here
delivered to your
does.
apartment. Like that. I mean,
Everyone.
I know you can, but I would definitely feel weirder about that than like in my county house, like just having stuff laying at my doorstep all the time and like not have that same like worry of like, is it going to be there versus like, I don't know. That like maybe it's better in the cities now. I know in the beginning it was like very worrisome to like have that stuff delivered, but I just, it saves
I get
me
it.
an hour of going to the grocery store. And it's like the one thing I've carried forward that's happened in the pandemic for like, air quotes laziness. Like I pay a premium for it, obviously. I got it, but like for me, it's just I type it in. My phone. I find out what I want. I don't have to walk around the grocery store. Delivered to my house,
That's
carry it in the
amazing.
house, and I'm done. And like that's been the one thing that I've really enjoyed. That the pandemic has changed.
Now,
And I'm
if you
glad it didn't go
request
away.
Honeycrisp apples and Jonathan says there were no Honeycrisp apples, you got Fuji.
Yep. Yeah, they offer. So the way app I use, they tell me if they're gonna
Is
have
that
to.
the
They
name of
always
the
tell me
grocery
if they're gonna
store?
make a substitution. No, no. Well, I use Whole Foods. So they tell me if I have to use if I have to make a if they make a substitution, they send me a text and they're like, we want to substitute Honeycrisp for Fuji,
Okay, thank God.
and I go no. Now if I miss the text message when they're filling my order, then they'll pick a substitution. You can set ahead of time all your substitutions, but ain't nobody got time for that. So I mean, because I'm not gonna find everything and then set a substitution for everything. Like now we're going
See,
down.
I think that's why I have to
Yes,
be in person
they're supposed.
because I think that's something I would do.
Yeah, yeah, but they do ask because I don't want no Fuji apples. If they don't have Honeycrisp, get out of here.
I
We're done.
did recently realize how much I liked the sugar bee apples. Yeah, they're fine. They're just
Those are
not
good
as
too,
good.
but it's Honeycrisp.
Or
It's
don't.
Honeycrisp
Yeah, I
or
agree.
nothing else. But yeah, more online.
Yes.
And yeah, and then the last thing we wrote down was like the running and fitness boom. Running is taken off since COVID. I mean, same thing with like fitness. It seems like obvious reasons, health concerns around everything. Like, running is something you could pick up during the pandemic.
Right. You didn't need a
Fitness,
gym.
same
It's
thing.
very
Gyms were
accessible.
open. So all that stuff was very accessible, and it was just like, oh, we'll do this stuff, and then you enjoy it, and then you get hooked, and then
Right.
maybe too hooked. But like the boom has taken off, and like, for us as coaches, we've seen
Yes.
many more athletes and many more people in the gym, or now maybe it's shifted to
Yeah.
more home gyms, I don't know, but like the general idea that people are doing a lot more, they're a lot more active, is definitely been a giant change over the last 5 years.
So
Yeah,
those are our high level
that's our
thoughts about the last 5 years
high level.
and what changed since the pandemic and what changed as a result of the pandemic. And we thought it was an interesting conversation to have. And if you thought so, tell us. And if you didn't think so, leave.
Don't, or tell us
Oh, you
if
can
you
tell us
left.
you left, right? You could do that. But otherwise, that's all. That's all we got. All right, we're gonna wrap this bad boy up. Yes. Before we
We
do
are.
that, as a reminder, we just launched our Patreon, which
Uh,
is Coach Nick. Please, it'll be in
it'll
the
be in
show
the show
notes.
notes, but it is Between Two Coaches at patreon.com. We have some bonus episodes up there. We got some fun things we want to bring. So look forward to that fun stuff if you're interested in more of
Yes,
Amanda
and you
and me.
definitely are. You definitely are. So we will we'll chat with you all next time. We really do hope you enjoyed this episode. And you can reach out to us at any time on the gram or at betweentwocoaches@gmail.com. And we will see you all next time.
Bye.